It's syndicated radio talk show host, author, singer Al Cole, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. I come from CBS Radio, and my shows are nationally syndicated through Apple, the biggest network out there airing CBS radio shows, and also BBC shows, Fox News, NPR, and C-SPAN as well, the whole kit and caboodle on Apple's iTunes radio network. I'm so proud to be part of the team there. And not only that, but coming from CBS Radio, I'm also a national voiceover artist as well as a communications and business consultant. Means that, I've helped a lot of professional broadcasters over at CBS Radio to talk good and to put their messages together in really gripping ways to the public. And I offer that, too, to a lot of clients nationally, internationally that come my way. Hey, we love that. Check it all out at peopleofdistinction.org. And check this out, too. You want to email me on anything that I do, email me at alcoholic@gmail.com. You heard me right. That's ALCOLEHOLIC@gmail.com. And I really want to thank my CBS radio listeners for coming up with that handle, Alcoholic. Seems like from day one, my listeners have been saying, Al, we love what you're doing there, brother. In fact, we're hooked on it. We're alcoholics. Gotta love that. Today, we've got a great guy coming up who wrote a magnificent book here, The Girl from Copenhagen. All right, gotta meet that girl. Who is that girl? Copenhagen? Boy, that sounds exotic. The girl, all of that stuff. The guy who wrote it, Glenn Peterson, that's his new book. And now, what was Glenn talking about when he wrote The Girl from Copenhagen? A lot of you are asking that question. I'm going to answer it right now in different ways. Okay, so it could be a mystery story. All right, so let's solve the mystery of The Girl from Copenhagen. All right, but it ain't that. It could be a tribute to some girl from Copenhagen, any girl. Maybe Glenn's wife. Okay, getting closer. I'll tell you if you're still guessing. And how could you know? This book, The Girl from Copenhagen, is all about Glenn's mother. Get that. Glenn loved his mother so much, honored his mother so much, that he wrote an entire book devoted to his mother. It tells the saga of Glenn's mother in all ways. And what a wonderful mother she was. And also Glenn's father, too. And the way that Glenn was brought up by his mother and father. Real values here, American values, that you got to love people. You have a mother. You have a father. You came from a family. You loved your mother. Okay, so this is a tribute, actually, in the longer sense, to all mothers out there from their loving sons. The Girl from Copenhagen. You're going to love that. And I want you to order that book at Amazon.com. That's the place to go to order The Girl from Copenhagen by our special guest, Glenn Peterson, today. And I will say that Glenn was brought to me by one of the big publishers book publishers around, and that is UR Link. Yeah, UR Link. Boy, if you want to get a book off the ground, UR Link can help you in so many ways. And they personalize it too, so you get that personal attention at UR Link. So run to urlink.com, get involved. Glenn, let's get involved here. I'm going to welcome you on to People of Distinction with Al Cole. How you doing today, Glenn?
I'm doing fine.
So let's get into it. Let's turn a few pages in this marvelous book of yours, The Girl from Copenhagen, all about your mother. Tell it your way. Give it a little bit of time and tell the story of The Girl from Copenhagen your way, Glenn.
I'll just begin with a brief introduction. The Girl from Copenhagen is a memoir. I began to write it after my mother died in January 2018. My goal was to set down my memories of her and the things she told me about herself and her family before the details began to fade from my mind. I think that my mother lived an interesting life, a life that's worthy of being preserved. And once I'm gone, there would be no one left to remember her story, and my father's story as well. I think I accomplished what I set out to do. The Girl from Copenhagen includes a photo section that follows my mother's life from childhood into old age. These pictures were culled from her photo albums. Inge Boos, that was my mother's name, was born in Denmark in 1923. She and her brother and sister grew up on their parents' farm. By all accounts, they had an idyllic childhood. By the age of 8 or 9, all three had learned to ride a horse, and that was bareback, without a saddle. But Inge was not a typical farm girl. She never mastered the art of milking a cow, which her year-old sister, your younger sister, teased her over. She avoided gathering eggs because the hens would peck her fingers. But while she was hopeless with most farm chores, she learned many household skills from her mother: cooking, knitting, crocheting, sewing, skills that would serve her throughout her life. In high school, Inge was at the top of her class. She learned to speak fluent English without a trace of an accent. She was good in math and biology. Inge and her family witnessed the German invasion of Denmark in April 1940. Inge moved to Copenhagen in 1943 during the brutal Nazi occupation. She had planned on becoming a nurse, but as it turned out, her ankles would swell up during a long shift. She would be forced to lie down, which made her as infirm as some of her patients. So after a year, she abandoned her dream of becoming a nurse. With her excellent math skills, she got a job as a bookkeeper at the largest shipyard in Denmark. On the way to her work, she would pass by German tanks in the town square. She got used to the sight of German soldiers armed with machine guns on every street corner. Sometimes they would demand to see her Ausweis, a German-issued ID card. My mother told me about almost daily bombings and shootings in the heart of Copenhagen. Some were committed by the Danish resistance, but most were committed by Germans in retaliation. On almost every street corner, she would see bombed out buildings or walls pockmarked with bullet holes. Inge had mixed feelings about working in a shipyard, which made, among other things, engines for German U-boats. And that made the shipyard a target for the British Royal Air Force, as well as the Danish resistance. But the pay was much higher than she could have gotten elsewhere, so she chose to stick it out. The day celebrated when the 5 years of Nazi occupation came to an end. That was in 1945. At a dance in Copenhagen, Inge met a handsome GI, Sergeant Bob Peterson. They immediately formed a connection. It turned out that they had something in common. Both had worked in the shipyard. After a whirlwind courtship, Inge decided to marry her GI. So in September 1946, which gave her 10 months to think over her decision, she said goodbye to her family and friends in Denmark and sailed to America to begin a new life. Inge and Bob lived in an apartment in Jersey City for the next several years. Somewhere along the way, I came into the picture. Starting in 1952, we would get into our DeSoto every Friday evening and drive to our building lot in rural New Jersey. My parents would work the whole weekend, clearing the land with axes and saws. They built their dream house with their own hands, without electricity or running water. My parents were like homesteaders in the early American West. If you needed help with anything, you had to rely on your neighbors. My father built a plywood shed for us to sleep in. On cold nights, we'd crawl into our sleeping bags. Bob dug a latrine in our backyard. Imagine trying to do something like that in the present day. It simply wouldn't be allowed with the current rules and regulations.
Oh, boy. How do you like that, people? Look, talk about rugged American individualism. Hey, it never went away. I mean, even in our century, even in our time. I mean, can you imagine? Glenn is talking about things that are so very vital to our society, the basics here, with his wonderful book, The Girl from Copenhagen. That girl happens to be his mother and father roughing it out there and still loving life. We don't need all the riches in the world, people. Come on. We got to get real here sometimes. What we need is each other. What we need is the family life together. Glenn is talking about that life together, the mother and father, him, and the way that they wanted to just help each other, love each other, be with each other, even with the hard times. Pioneer stuff. You know, this is what made America great, people. Let's make America great for all Americans this time. Yeah. Glenn is talking about a wonderful, wonderful mother. Your mother's legacy is integrally intertwined with your father's legacy as well. They were
That's
both
correct. Yes.
pioneers
Yeah.
and they were both wonderful human beings.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? That's how we talk on People of Distinction with Al
Yeah. They were
Cole.
both self-sufficient.
And your mother is no longer with us.
That's right.
The very last days of her life, uh, I'm sure that you were with her. Your maybe your father is deceased. Those very
Yeah. He
last
died in
days.
1990. My
Yes,
mother died in 2018 at the age of 94.
94. Look at that. What a beautiful, fulfilled life. And I'm sure that she left that legacy with you and also with other family members. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
And probably a whole bunch of other people that she positively influenced throughout her life. Uh, I like to end my shows with possibility thinking, possibilities into our human family future here,
Mhm.
Glenn. If we could all love our mother the way that you loved your mother, if we could all honor our mother in words that you have honored your mother in with your wonderful book, The Girl from Copenhagen, possibilities into our human family future. What kind of world would that look like if we all honored and loved our mother the way that you honor and love your mother in your book? How would that change our world?
Well, it would be a much better world than we have today because my parents they got along well. I never heard them argue. My mother was willing to compromise. That's how their marriage lasted for 44 years. My mother was always able to compromise. We moved many times, 7 moves in 25 years, but she always went along with what my father wanted. That's how their marriage was able to survive. Compromising was the solution.
She was a very wise woman. So the undergird to all of this would be people, when you create a family, especially when you become a mother, be prepared to have it a lifetime gift to your children, to your husband, and to the people around you, because it's a gift that keeps growing and growing. And life is an adjustment process, just
Yeah.
like Glenn is talking about with his mother. His mother moved, Glenn's father involved in things that needed to sometimes have moving as a
Yeah.
big
And my
aspect.
mother never complained.
Yes,
True.
your mother never complained and she got along so beautifully. That
Yeah.
is a life lesson. The world that we could talk about once we get into that new world of everybody loves their mother, honors their mother, we are honoring actually maybe our wives too. We're honoring our sisters. We're honoring somebody else's mother as well, even if we don't know that individual and
Sure.
that mother. But we're honoring the fact of resilience, the resilience that it takes for a woman to nurture children, for a woman to love and reach out and say, I'm here for you, to the children, to the husband, to the society around her. If we now honor women in general, Women have that beautiful gift of nurturance that could help our human family to develop so beautifully. And that is one of the big gifts that we can give ourselves into our human family.
That's
It's one
true.
of the big gifts that Glenn Peterson gives you in his marvelous book, The Girl from Copenhagen. And that girl was Glenn's mother. Beautiful memoir to his mother. And I want you to order that at Amazon.com. And I also want you to get involved with You Are Link. That's the publishing company that brought Glenn to People of Distinction. YouAreLinkPublishing.com. That's where you want to go. Thank you so much, Glenn, for this wonderful, wonderful interview and this insight into motherhood through your wonderful mother, the girl from Copenhagen. And I'm going to let you end the show with a memory for your mother. What would that be, Glenn?
Thank you, Al. I could just say that both of my parents taught me about self-reliance when they were building their dream house in rural New Jersey. They didn't depend on the government, or there was no Levittown at that time, so they had to do things by their own devices, relying on their neighbors instead of the federal government or anything like that. And they taught me a valuable lesson about self-reliance.
Self-reliance. No better way to cap off another great People of Distinction show with this time our guest Glenn Peterson talking about his mother, hailing the wonderful, wonderful attributes and contributions of his own mother to him and also to the people around her. And we love that on People of Distinction. One more time, got to order that book. The Girl from Copenhagen. Go to Amazon.com. This has really been great, and I think all of my listeners are thanking Glenn right now for his contribution to motherhood. On People of Distinction with Al Cole, we talk that way. Thank you very much, people, and join us the next time for People of Distinction with Al Cole, and thank you so much, Glenn, as well.